The talent show was buzzing with excitement, the auditorium packed with people from every corner of the city, all eager to see performers of every kind showcase their skills. Bright lights glared down from above, and a warm hum of chatter filled the room. Backstage, contestants adjusted costumes, rehearsed lines, and took deep breaths, but amidst the flurry of organized chaos, one small figure stood out, not because of elaborate attire or confident poise, but because of her raw, unpolished presence. She was a young black girl, no older than 15, dressed in tattered clothes, her shoes worn through, and a thin scarf wrapped around her shoulders. She carried nothing with her but a small notebook, its pages frayed at the edges, and a voice that had never been heard outside the narrow streets she called home. When the host called her name, she stepped forward hesitantly, clutching the notebook to her chest. The audience murmured, some curious, some skeptical. She looked up at the judges, their faces a mixture of expectation and amusement. She cleared her throat, her voice barely audible at first. "If I sing well, will you give me food?" she asked, her words simple, honest, and tinged with vulnerability. A ripple of laughter ran through the room, low and dismissive. Some thought it was a joke, others a desperate plea for attention. But she did not flinch. She opened the notebook, took a deep breath, and began to sing. The first notes were soft, trembling slightly as though she were testing the air around her. Then, with every word, her voice grew stronger, more confident. It filled the auditorium like sunlight breaking through a cloudy morning, warm and unexpected, wrapping around the listeners and holding them in a spell they hadn't anticipated. The judges exchanged glances, their initial amusement giving way to astonishment. There was a clarity and purity in her voice that transcended her appearance, a rawness that spoke of struggle, longing, and untold stories. Every note carried her truth, every word a testament to her resilience. She sang not for fame, not for accolades, but for survival, and somehow, that sincerity shone through brighter than any polish or technique. By the time she reached the final chorus, the audience was on its feet. Some had tears in their eyes, others had hands pressed to their mouths in disbelief. The sound of applause rose like a wave, sweeping across the room and lifting her from the shadows of doubt. She had asked only for food, a simple act of human kindness, and instead, she had given something far greater, a moment of pure, undeniable beauty that touched the hearts of everyone present. The judges, previously composed and reserved, now leaned forward, their expressions softened by genuine admiration. One of them, a seasoned music producer with a reputation for being tough and critical, stood up, his voice catching slightly as he spoke. "Young lady," he said, "that was extraordinary. I don't just see a street girl. I see an artist, a voice that deserves to be heard. You have talent that can change lives, starting with your own." The girl blinked, overwhelmed by the words, by the applause, by the sudden shift from invisibility to recognition. She had never imagined that her simple plea could lead to anything more than a meal, and yet, here she was, at the center of attention, offered a chance she had never dreamed possible. After the show, she was escorted backstage by one of the judges, who knelt down to meet her at eye level. "We want to help you," he said kindly. "Not just with food, but with training, education, and guidance. You have something rare, something special, and it would be a shame to let it go unnoticed." For the first time in her life, she felt hope that wasn't tied to the next meal or the next day's survival. She felt seen, valued, and understood. It was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. She nodded, unable to find words, her heart pounding in a mixture of disbelief and joy. The days that followed were a whirlwind of lessons, auditions, and introductions to people who believed in her potential. The small street girl who had once sung for food was now learning about microphones, recording studios, and the intricacies of music she had only ever dreamed of. Every day brought new challenges, but she faced them with the same courage that had carried her through life on the streets. And though her journey had only just begun, she knew one thing with certainty: that night at the talent show, when she had asked for something as simple as food, she had not only fed her body but had also nourished her soul, igniting a path toward a future she had never dared to imagine. Her voice had opened doors, touched hearts, and transformed a simple plea into a story of hope, resilience, and extraordinary possibility. After her breathtaking performance at the talent show, the young street girl felt a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. The applause still echoed in her ears, a sound she had never truly experienced outside the occasional claps of street performers who had once passed her by. She had asked for nothing more than a meal, and yet now, strangers were speaking to her as if her life held infinite possibilities. Among the sea of faces in the audience, one figure stood out, a tall man in a tailored suit who had watched her performance intently, eyes glimmering with emotion. Unlike the others, he had not clapped immediately, he had observed, and he had understood. Later that evening, as the auditorium emptied and the other contestants were gathering their belongings, the man approached her. "You have a gift," he said gently, kneeling to meet her gaze. His voice carried an authority and warmth that immediately put her at ease. "But talent alone isn't enough. You need guidance, support, and opportunities to truly shine. Would you like me to help you?" The girl blinked, unsure whether to trust him. She had known only the streets, only survival, only herself. Yet something in his eyes, kindness, patience, understanding, compelled her to nod. That single gesture marked the beginning of a journey that would transform her life in ways she could scarcely imagine. The man introduced himself as Mr. Langston, a philanthropist who had built his fortune but never lost his humanity. He arranged for her to stay temporarily in a small, comfortable apartment he owned in the city, giving her a stable place to rest and dream. For the first time, she had a bed that wasn't cold, food that was consistent, and walls that offered safety rather than the unpredictable dangers of the streets. At night, she would lie awake, thinking of the talent show, the audience's reaction, and the improbable kindness that had changed her path in an instant. Days turned into weeks, and Mr. Langston arranged for music lessons with some of the city's most respected vocal coaches. She learned about breath control, pitch, and performance presence. She discovered nuances in music she had never considered, but what surprised her most was how much she loved the discipline. The structure gave her confidence, and every lesson felt like a step toward a world she had only glimpsed in passing. Despite the luxury and care surrounding her, the adjustment was not easy. She faced moments of doubt and fear, wondering if she truly belonged in this new world. The other students she met came from backgrounds she could hardly imagine. Some had money, some had training, and some had families who supported their every endeavor. She felt like an outsider, a girl who had sung for food, trying to navigate a world of privilege and opportunity. Yet her voice remained her anchor. When she sang, all insecurities melted away. Her lessons became more than practice, they were a bridge between the person she had been and the person she could become. And slowly, she began to trust herself, her instincts, and the kindness that had found her in the first place. Outside of music, Mr. Langston helped her navigate the practicalities of life she had never experienced. He taught her about budgeting, hygiene, communication, and even the basics of navigating the city safely. Each lesson, though small, built her independence. For the first time, she felt capable, resilient, and hopeful, not just for the next meal, but for the life she was beginning to build. One afternoon, after months of training, Mr. Langston invited her to perform at a small charity event he was organizing. She felt her old nerves rise, but as she stepped onto the modest stage, she realized she was no longer the street girl who had sung for scraps. She was a young artist, confident and prepared. When her voice rose to fill the hall, the crowd listened in awe. They didn't see her tattered past, they saw talent, dedication, and heart. And she realized that all those nights on the streets, all the hunger, and all the struggle had given her a depth that no formal training could replicate. After the performance, Mr. Langston hugged her tightly. "See what you can do when you have support?" he asked, smiling. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her face. She understood now that the kindness she had received had opened doors, but her courage, resilience, and talent were what allowed her to walk through them. In the weeks that followed, opportunities continued to appear, small gigs, recording sessions, and even invitations to larger events. She learned to balance her excitement with humility, understanding that her journey was ongoing. She never forgot the streets, the cold nights, or the hunger that had once defined her, but she also no longer saw them as the limits of her existence. The young girl who had once asked for food had found something far greater: hope, guidance, and a chance to transform her life. She realized that her talent was a gift, but what truly mattered was the compassion of others and her willingness to embrace it. She no longer sang only to survive, she sang to inspire, to express, and to share the story of a girl who had been invisible but had finally been seen. And so, from the streets to the stage, from hunger to hope, her journey continued, a testament to the power of kindness, opportunity, and the unyielding spirit of a girl who had dared to sing. The talent show had ended, the lights dimmed, and the crowd slowly filed out, buzzing about the remarkable performances they had witnessed. Yet amidst the applause and chatter, one young black street girl lingered backstage, clutching the small notebook that had been her companion for months. Her voice still hummed in her mind, the memory of the applause like a distant echo she could barely believe. She had come hoping for nothing more than a meal, and instead, she had discovered a world that might just accept her for who she was. But tonight, a different kind of surprise awaited her. As she sat on the cold backstage floor, exhausted but exhilarated, a young woman approached, holding a small bag of sandwiches. "Here," she said kindly, offering the food. "You must be hungry." The girl's eyes widened in gratitude. She had not expected such generosity, even in the aftermath of her performance. She accepted the sandwiches quietly, almost shyly, and took a small bite, savoring every morsel. Before she could even thank the woman, a commotion erupted near the stage entrance. A man had collapsed, his motorcycle lying tipped on its side. Gasps and shouts filled the air as people rushed forward to help. The young girl instinctively ran toward the man, her heart pounding with fear but her mind focused. She knelt beside him, checking for injuries, trying to remain calm despite the chaos around her. The crowd gave her space, recognizing her urgency and determination. The man's eyes fluttered open, pain etched across his face, and he tried to speak. "Help, please." His voice was weak, strained. The girl held his hand gently, her own trembling slightly. She offered comfort, guiding him to stay still, and helped direct others to call for an ambulance. Despite her young age and lack of medical training, she instinctively knew what to do, and her calm presence prevented the situation from worsening. As the paramedics arrived and carefully lifted him onto a stretcher, the man's gaze found hers. There was a glimmer of recognition, a connection that transcended the chaos. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the sirens and murmurs of the crowd. She nodded, unsure how else to respond. She had acted out of instinct, not expecting gratitude or recognition, yet something about his tone struck her deeply. In the following days, she learned that the man was a billionaire businessman named Adrian Hayes, well known for his philanthropic efforts and passion for the arts. Despite his wealth and status, he had been alone when the accident occurred, relying on strangers for aid. And now, it was this young street girl who had saved him from potential disaster. He could not stop thinking about her courage, compassion, and presence of mind, qualities that were rare and extraordinary. Adrian reached out to the girl through a local youth organization, offering her a chance she had never imagined, a place to stay, education, and guidance in pursuing her dreams. She was hesitant at first, wary of promises and wary of strangers, but her memories of his gratitude and the trust he had placed in her instincts persuaded her to accept. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that blended opportunity with responsibility, hope with growth. Settling into her new life, she began to discover the depth of her own potential. Adrian introduced her to mentors, artists, and educators who nurtured her talent while helping her navigate the complexities of her new environment. Music lessons became a daily ritual, and she quickly learned not only technical skill but also the importance of discipline, focus, and confidence. Each day was challenging, yet every challenge brought growth, transforming the girl who had sung for a meal into a young woman capable of greatness. Beyond music, she discovered the world of philanthropy and social responsibility through Adrian's guidance. She began volunteering at shelters, visiting hospitals, and mentoring younger children who faced the same hardships she had endured. Her past struggles became a source of empathy, fueling a desire to help others who were overlooked or forgotten. Through this, she realized that true strength came not only from talent but from kindness, resilience, and the ability to make a difference in someone else's life. Her performances evolved, too, reflecting her journey. Audiences were captivated not only by her voice but by the story it carried, the story of a girl who had faced hunger, fear, and uncertainty yet had refused to surrender. Each note, each lyric, carried the weight of her experiences, resonating deeply with anyone who listened. Her story inspired those around her, reminding them of the power of courage and compassion. Months later, she returned to the very stage where her journey had begun, not for a meal, not for recognition, but to share her gift with others. Adrian sat in the front row, smiling proudly, knowing that her talent was matched by her character. The applause was thunderous, but she no longer measured herself by the approval of strangers. She sang because it was her voice, her truth, and her contribution to the world. The young street girl who had once asked for a simple meal had transformed her life through courage, kindness, and an unwavering commitment to herself. She had discovered that opportunity often came disguised as challenge, that greatness could arise from unexpected places, and that the world was full of people willing to lift her up if she was brave enough to accept their help. Her journey continued, a testament to resilience, hope, and the extraordinary power of a single act of compassion in a moment of crisis.